I can already hear the clickety-clacking of keys on a computer keyboard, possibly being typed on by Stephen S. Biss, perhaps objecting to this image that I've presented today. I want to be clear, this is a political cartoon intended to depict myself and Robert David Steele engaged in a, what's the word I'm looking for? Not an actual physical fight, but we are adversaries. I do not want anyone to do anything to Robert David Steele. No threats, no harm. Don't want him to be harmed. No one should punch him. This is a funny image, a political cartoon that depicts us as adversaries, as we were today in court. I'm standing here outside the federal court building in Richmond, Virginia, where earlier today we had the hearing with Judge Locke. And I have to say, it's an incredibly impressive building. I'm sorry I can't show people the interior of it, but cameras are strictly prohibited. Electronics and recording devices of any type are strictly prohibited. And I wanted to make this video very quickly to explain to everyone what went on. There have been a lot of people calling, writing. I really do appreciate the support from all the viewers and friends out there in the Crowdsource the Truth world. Actually, 2 Crowdsource the Truth viewers came to the hearing. Thank you for that. People want to know how it went. I think it went all right. It was, again, this was a pre-trial hearing, so really the purpose of this hearing was just to set the date for the trial. Now, I think it differed. This is my first pre-trial hearing ever, so it's hard for me to really tell people how it went compared to maybe other pre-trial hearings, but it's basically what I was able to determine from the conversation in the courtroom is that, generally speaking, pre-trial hearings go very quickly. I began to realize that the judge was planning to give this maybe more attention than usual when it was pushed back in the day to allow other proceedings that were going on in the courtroom to happen before ours. We were scheduled for 12:30. But I don't think we actually got underway until closer to 3 or a little after 3, and then didn't get out of there until, I don't know, I wasn't back at the hotel until after 4. So, you know, slightly uncomfortable timing with regard to lunch. I didn't have too much to eat so far today, but I wanted to let everybody know what was happening because so many people have questions and it's too many people for me to write back to. So I would like this to be a sort of a comprehensive overview of what happened. Now, everyone knows I'm not a lawyer. I'm representing myself pro se in this case. And I did that because I was very confident that the plan that Robert David Steele and his legal team were relying on was to overwhelm me with legal force. It's now been revealed by Manuel Chavez III that he was receiving communications from Stephen Biss's wife, Tanya Cornwell. It's starting to rain. It was super hot today, and then there was like a brief deluge, and it's much more comfortable now. I should be coming through the proper microphone, so apologize for the wind, but hopefully I won't get rained on. Manuel Chavez has turned over emails, communications between himself, Stephen Biss, who is the lawyer for the plaintiff in this matter, Robert David Steele's lawyer. Manuel Chavez was also communicating with Stephen Biss's wife, Tanya Cornwell. And the thing that seems unusual about this is that Tanya Cornwell sent Manuel Chavez $1,500 over Patreon. Oh yeah, people who want to sponsor Crowdsource the Truth can do it by going to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Really appreciate the sponsorship, and it is more important than ever now. I'm going to be back here, I wrote it down, February, I forget the exact day, I have it written down. We're going to have another pre-trial conference in February, and right now the trial is scheduled to begin in March. So this is not over. This is really just beginning, to tell you the truth. And I think I had a slightly unrealistic, or perhaps extremely unrealistic, slightly naive hope for what might happen today. I wanted to present this information to the judge because it strikes me that if you're a lawyer and you have a third party who's your wife, pay a person to really aggressively encourage that person to bring a lawsuit against someone, that seems not right, particularly if the thing you want the person to sue me for is something I didn't do. It's interesting. Manuel Chavez has turned over the complaint that the office of Stephen Biss created for him, intended to initiate a lawsuit against me, alleging that I got Manuel Chavez fired by calling Jason Turnquist at Fireside. Now, this is totally untrue. The thing that's interesting is I recorded that phone call with Jason Turnquist. Haven't released it. I might. Turnquist threatened to sue me if I released the call. Perhaps he's not familiar with phone call recording laws in New York State. But during that phone call, Turnquist reveals, this is the first time I've ever called the place, the first time I ever spoke to him, and Turnquist reveals during that phone call that Chavez was fired for reasons that had nothing to do with me. I don't want to malign Manuel Chavez. He's being helpful. He's cooperating with me. I just want to convey from a factual standpoint what Mr. Turnquist said. He said that Chavez was relieved of his position strictly for performance-based reasons, that he'd become more interested in live streaming and creative video projects than the projects that Turnquist's company was engaged in. He made no mention of me contributing to Mr. Chavez being fired, and actually Mr. Chavez has told me that he knows he wasn't fired because of anything that I did. So now that wasn't filed, that lawsuit that Mr. Biss and his wife aggressively encouraged Manuel Chavez to bring. There's a law here in Virginia called barratry, or like barratry and dispatch or something like that. But barratry is the act of stirring up litigation. Basically, I don't think you're supposed to encourage people to sue people for things that didn't happen, but we'll find out. The judge didn't want to hear about it, but I realize now that I should have expected that. I would say that Judge Locke seems to be extremely fair. She's been very generous with me as a pro se litigant. She went over a lot of details with me. I mean, I feel badly because the judge is basically put in the position of having to instruct me. I'm not a lawyer, but yet I must abide by the federal rules of civil procedure. And I know that, and I've been trying to do that, and the local rules, of course, the Eastern District of Virginia rules, but they're complicated. I mean, it's a little bit like somebody telling you, go read a book on how to write a computer program and then just go write it. It's complicated. And the thing that's troubling about this, and another reason why I wanted to make this video, is because this case is quickly becoming much more important than whatever happens to me. Because what we're seeing is, it appears, we have information that could cause one to believe or perhaps presume that lawyers like Stephen S. Biss, not necessarily Stephen S. Biss himself, but lawyers who have a penchant towards being, predatory, basically have, open blank check to bring a lawsuit against someone, even if they do something illegal to do that. And I don't know if what he's done is illegal or not. I do believe, by reading this barratry statute and just evaluating what's been done, emails of Biss telling Chavez not to talk to anybody about his communications with his wife, Chavez indicating that he's nervous and sticking to the story. When I revealed that I was communicating with the FBI about stalking and harassing, Chavez was sticking to the story. Now, I hope that the help that Manuel Chavez is providing with this information will ameliorate any, jeopardy that he might be in, because this is a good thing. I want to encourage people who are involved in conspiracies or criminal activity. If you're doing something and you know it's the wrong thing to do, you should come forward. And Manuel Chavez should be praised for that, because he's coming under fire. David Swigert has been directing his attention towards Manuel Chavez. very anti-Sun Tzu of me to attract Mr. Sweigert's attention while he's so busily getting in his own way. He's now taken to basically threatening the federal judge in the Southern District of New York. That's Valerie Caproni. Mr. Zweigert seems to think she's a friend of mine. I've never met Judge Caproni. I don't really know any judges personally. I certainly don't know any federal judges at all. I met Judge Locke today in a professional setting. She was very polite. I would even say she's friendly. She admonished me several times because I don't know what I'm doing in a courtroom. And this is where the predatory lawyers come in. See, they know that. And there's all this procedural stuff coming up. The judge was actually extremely informative in this regard. See, she told me she wasn't pleased that so far basically all of my pleadings were done incorrectly. And again, the best analogy I can make is anybody out there in the audience with no experience in the film business, sit down and write a screenplay and go mail it to a producer or director. I guarantee they're going to tell you the format is wrong, everything is wrong. You need to learn a lot of stuff to be able to do this. So the judge was very explicit in explaining to me that there are things coming up in the process now. We're going to trial, there's no doubt. A 3-day trial was set for March, and witnesses will be there, depositions will be there. They'll present their evidence and I'll present mine. But the thing that the judge was very clear about is I can't just walk in there and present these emails from Manuel Chavez and say, hey, I believe there's evidence that this lawyer did something illegal to initiate this lawsuit. Even if I'm correct, I cannot do that at this stage. So I think that's pretty useful for people to know. And the thing that I am realizing is that when there are lawyers out there who want to encourage people to bring vexatious and frivolous lawsuits, they can get pretty far with it. If you're someone like Stephen Biss, not necessarily Stephen Biss, and we don't even know that this is exactly what Stephen Biss is doing, but you bring a lawsuit like this. Let's say you bring another one in Arizona. Let's say you bring another one in South Carolina. And it's all from different people who you swear are unrelated, don't communicate, don't know each other. But now the target, in this case me, has multiple civil lawsuits. The other thing that the judge mentioned was, you don't have to be pro se. You can hire a lawyer. You don't have a guarantee of a lawyer in a civil case. If the cops arrest you and throw you in jail, the state will appoint you a lawyer. You'll at least have someone who's trained in the law and can defend you. But if someone brings a civil action against you and you don't have $10, $20, $50,000 to retain a lawyer, I can't imagine what Trish has been spending. It's got to be a lot. And if you don't have that money, you are really screwed. And I mean, I think I present myself pretty well. I can speak and articulate my point of view. And I did go in there sort of hoping and thinking that perhaps I could just speak to the judge in plain language and I would present what I think is kind of shocking information about the behavior of the plaintiff for the counsel, and that she might, ask him to answer for that. But the judge was very clear that this is not the point in the trial where that sort of information can be introduced. And she was also very clear that if I make mistakes about how I introduce evidence, I run the risk of that evidence being rendered inadmissible. Meaning, if Manuel Chavez gives me an email or a series of emails that provide evidence that there was a conspiracy between Robert David Steele, Tanya Cornwell, Stephen Biss, Thomas Schoenberger, and others, if Mr. Chavez provides me that evidence and I enter it incorrectly or do something with it that doesn't meet the rules, I run the risk of making that evidence inadmissible, meaning I can't even present it. So I could lose this case even if the evidence is present that I'm in the right. So we're really learning a lot about this game of lawfare. And I do believe that it was the plan of Stephen Biss and Robert David Steele to initiate multiple lawsuits against me, coming from Manuel Chavez, coming from Robert David Steele. I think Robert David Steele even sent an email to George Webb saying Goodman is going to be hit by a series of lawsuits. Manny will be out front. His case is just in support What does that mean? His case is in support. I don't know that that's a legitimate legal thing that you can do, but of course, people know that David Swigert, George Webb Swigert's brother, has brought a lawsuit against me initially in South Carolina. Now it's moved to the Southern District of New York, and he's running off at the mouth about bringing another lawsuit in California. So think about that. This is like multiple attack vectors in the world of lawfare. Like, it's difficult enough to handle yourself with one lawsuit. Now imagine you've got 3 or 4. I'm sure they're getting Dean Fougere ready to queue up a lawsuit. Do you like how they concocted the same fake story? I didn't call Dean's place of employment to get him fired. I called there to let his employer know that I have good reason to believe that one of their employees is putting them at legal risk by potentially sending harassing messages from the network in their office. This is why I believe, well, let's not go into that. What I believe doesn't matter. What I can prove in court does. So there's going to be a trial, and I'm going to have to be very careful about how I handle evidence, information. The judge flat out said, one more mistake and I'm going to get sanctioned, and that the sanctions could include monetary fines, or this part sounded much worse. That was all the stuff about, making my evidence inadmissible, because monetary fines, I mean, if it's $100, okay, 10,000, that's bad. But if the evidence goes away, they're suing me for $18.35 million for what Robert David Steele alleges is defamation. So we're going to have to see what happens. The judge seems very fair. Robert David Steele's lawyer refuses to answer questions about why his wife would have sent $1,500 to Manuel Chavez while she was aggressively encouraging him to bring a lawsuit against me, a lawsuit that she claims to have written for Stephen Biss, which I am now in possession of, that alleges all kinds of things that I did not do, very much like the Robert David Steele lawsuit. And, I don't think that this is an appropriate way for a lawyer to act. It's a little bit kind of pick on somebody your own size. It's an unfair playing field. I really wish there was some way we could amend the civil justice system such that if there is a period of time or a mechanism to introduce at the outset of the trial some kind of wrongdoing, if someone has acted illegally, I guess you can't. I mean, I just don't know that much about the law. They want evidence, they want facts, this has got to go to trial. The judge seemed to, she can't give me advice, right? But everybody who's a lawyer or a judge says you should hire a lawyer. I just don't, I don't have the money to do that, and I don't think that's the right way to win this case, but I am very concerned about this notion of doing something that could damage this very valuable evidence, because I do believe that this is evidence of the conspiracy I've been alleging all along. And anybody who is involved in this conspiracy, my advice, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I do think that coming forward and telling the truth now rather than later, as this case does go my way, I'm not countersuing Robert David Steele. I'm not trying to get money from Robert David Steele. I don't imagine that he has any, and even if I were to win, collecting money from a civil lawsuit that somebody doesn't want to pay you for is not going to happen. But if a crime has been committed, I'm going to do everything that I can to see that justice is served and that there's a criminal investigation. And I'm going to aggressively pursue that. That's not a threat. I believe Mr. Biss said I threatened him with criminal prosecution. I think I could only do that if I were a prosecutor. I'm just letting him know what I'm going to do, and I'm going to pursue justice, and I'm going to exercise my legal rights. I've been trying to get in touch with David Seaman. David Seaman published a video a week or two ago where he alleged some of the same things that I am, that Stephen Biss had become his lawyer at Robert David Steele's suggestion, that Robert David Steele was very aggressive about getting David Seaman involved in a lawsuit, I think against Twitter. And if I am recalling correctly, David was upset that Stephen Biss left him high and dry on the day of the hearing and basically told him to appear pro se. I can tell you it's not very comfortable to appear pro se. And Stephen Biss, based on his record, his disciplinary record, he doesn't seem like really a great lawyer. He seems like a guy who knows the law well enough to sort of slip in between the cracks. And the thing that's also troubling is that Stephen Biss has not been adequately disciplined for his infractions in the past, in my opinion. People can go back and look at how he was excoriated by Judge Williams, I believe, federal judge in also the Southern District of New York. This was for his involvement, Biss's involvement, in a $21 million escrow fraud, where he was a lawyer managing an escrow account for a stock transfer, and he told somebody the money was there when it wasn't. So, you know, the Virginia State Bar found this transgression, called his fitness to practice law into question. I really think that if you're a lawyer and you commit a crime, you should not be allowed to be a lawyer anymore. That sounds like a crime to me, lying to people about $21 million so you can get something. Actually, that sounds like fraud. I don't know, it's interesting how he didn't get in that much trouble for that, but anytime somebody does something and they don't get in trouble, well, what happens? They become emboldened. They realize, hey, wait a minute, we can break the rules and nothing will happen, so why don't we just keep doing that? Now think about this, if you were a lawyer, if you were in legal practice and you just realized, hey, you know what, we could bring all these huge lawsuits against people, we could pay YouTubers $1,500 to be plaintiffs in lawsuits, and we could get somebody into a courthouse like that one right over there, and we could let them find out firsthand from a judge what kind of jeopardy they're in if they screw up their case. And, you know, you do this to enough people, and they're going to make a calculation. How much does it cost to hire a lawyer? How much does it cost to settle this case? What's the likelihood that I'm going to lose and have $18 million to pay or some huge sum? And guess what? That's a business. You could just make a business out of bringing frivolous and vexatious lawsuits against whoever you want to sort of, you know, lawyer them into submission. And I believe that's what's happening right now with Stephen Biss. Stephen Biss has refused to answer questions about why his wife was sending Manuel Chavez $1,500 while both his wife and he were basically lobbying Chavez to sue me. He won't answer that. He won't address that. He won't even want to discuss that. He also scheduled this discovery conference. This is the other thing that the judge was talking about and why I think she wanted to put some attention on this hearing. Normally these hearings are short, I believe. You just walk in there and they say, can you come in February 10th? No, I'm busy. 11th, 12th? Okay, here it is. It's set. There's the trial. I think that generally is usually it. Today we had a discovery dispute. So discovery, this is like Robert David Steele's favorite thing. He's been talking about this since the beginning. He's even publicly lied and said that discovery has already shown him that, according to him, I'm paid $3,000 a month by, or a week, or whatever he said, by Mossad. That's not true. I've never been paid anything by Mossad. As far as I know, is someone out there, Mossad, sending me money? I don't think so. Certainly not $3,000 a month. Getting nowhere near $3,000 a month. But the real sort of prima facie evidence that that's a lie is that discovery hasn't even started. We're having a meeting today about discovery, and the reason discovery hasn't started is because there's supposed to be a conference call between all the parties about what they want from me, all of my emails, and people should know that Robert David Steele's legal team is asking for everyone's identity who watches Crowdsource the Truth. They want to know who you are. They accuse everyone who watches Crowdsource the Truth of being a gang that I control. So they want to know who you all are. I've said New York State civil rights laws protect journalists and their sources, and that because Crowdsource the Truth is a unique combination of investigative journalism, social media, and reality television, anyone who calls me to communicate about stories or facts and information that we discuss on the show is a journalistic source and should be protected. Their identities cannot be revealed. And that's what I intend to stand by. We never had, oh well, they also asked for pictures of me naked. They want to discover that. Robert David Steele wants pictures of me naked. Why do you want that, Robert David Steele? That has nothing to do with your case. So I'm totally willing to turn over reasonable things that will help them, argue their case. I would imagine emails between myself and the co-defendants, the plaintiff, the counsel for the plaintiff. These all seem like reasonable things. There's things they can ask for, but pictures of me naked, emails with Charles Ortel and Kevin Shipp and people that have nothing to do with this, I'm not going to give them any of that, and I don't think I should be forced to. The problem is, Stephen Biss scheduled this meeting by sending an email to an email address that I never gave him, is not my email address of record for this case. And again, I think it's one of these things that he knows the judge isn't going to care. And that, I go in there and I say something about it and the judge gets annoyed. But he knows what you can do and get away with. He knows $21 million escrow fraud, no big deal. Make up stuff and put it in a lawsuit, doesn't matter, this guy's gonna probably settle. Biss's wife tells Chavez, bring the lawsuit and Goodman will probably throw $500,000 at you to settle it. Do you believe that? Do you believe that? All right, anyway, I gotta go upstairs, get ready for more pain, 8:30 tonight. Unfortunately, Kevin Shipp has been delayed. Kevin is working on a breaking story, as was Mike. And Kevin was scheduled to join us tonight, but he's not gonna be able to do that. Kevin will be on tomorrow with the intelligence assessment. And tonight we have more pain. So people who are sponsors of the show are going to enjoy that exclusive content on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth and subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And we'll be on with Mike Moore of True Pundit in about 1 hour. So I'm going to go get ready for that. I think there's a lot to be learned from this Steele v. Goodman case. I certainly hope I don't lose $18 million. I certainly hope that people who would engage in frivolous and vexatious lawsuits are somehow prevented from doing that. I hope I can do something to affect that change. I mean, this is a huge waste of time and money. The people who work in that courthouse are, of course, employed by the government, and so all of our taxes pay for that building to operate. And when people improperly utilize it, that's wasting your money, that's wasting taxpayer money, that is jamming up that court and preventing justice from happening. That is absolutely not what lawyers are intended to do. So we'll see what the next chapter is in this. I got a lot more reading to do. I got to really, really stick to those Eastern District of Virginia rules, local rules. I mean, remember, I'm not allowed to consult a lawyer. I already got kind of dinged for that. There was a judge's order saying that you got to sign this document that says that no lawyer helped you. So it's like I read the rules, I don't understand the rules, and I can't get help from a lawyer. I just got to work it out. Anyway, I'll see everybody in an hour. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for all the support. Net, I think it was a pretty good day at the hearing. Nothing major happened. I got schooled a little bit in what I do not know, and it's a lot. And finally met the elusive Stephen Biss. I really want to know, Stephen, why did your wife send $1,500 to Manuel Chavez while you and she were lobbying him to sue me for something I didn't do? At the same time that Robert David Steele is suing me. At the same time David Swigert is suing me. It's interesting. Who else you got queued up to sue me? I guess we'll see.